The whole aim of this series is to ignite and embolden questions and conversations. It is an exploration of how you could be engaged in your work so that work itself can be a reward and not simply a way to rewards. I've come to the farm to talk about work because on a farm one often feels an ancient conversation here between human endeavor to belong and a particular work. On a farm, work always makes sense. You see the harvest and you feel the cycles. I'm interested in looking at the farm here as a template for a deeper conversation, a deeper question about our own work. How do you belong to the territory of your own destiny in the small confines of your office cubicle or wherever your particular workplace happens to be? I sometimes think, that we crack the window of our car in the parking lot in the summer, and we think we're doing it to preserve the upholstery, but actually we're doing it because only 60% of us goes into that building and 40% of us remains outside in the car and has to breathe all day in the heat. And when we come out in the evening, it wants to know what we've been doing, and besides, we said we'd finish at 5:30 and it's 7:30 already. What would it be like to bring all of ourselves into the workplace? Now, normally, the immediate answer is, listen, work has so much of me already, and I'm so flattened and hung out to dry that I'm not bringing what is most precious to me into that place because it can't have that too. But my feeling is that the part we leave outside is actually the most courageous and dimension-filled and deepest part of ourselves. And it's the soul part of ourselves. It's the part that knows how to belong to the world and knows the nature of its own belonging. And what we're really afraid of is what the soul will say when it comes into the building and sees what we do all day and how we do it. And we're afraid that the soul will speak out and change our life forever. Seems to me that we can't have a real conversation in the workplace unless we're having a real conversation inside ourselves. Because you have to ask the question, who is coming to work? Is it someone who is simply enduring the work environment in order to try and live their life out somewhere else? Very difficult to do that because we spend so much time, especially these days, in the workplace. We spend more time in the workplace than we do with our families. It's quite sobering to take an account of how much time you spend in the workplace as opposed to time with your loved ones and your nearest and dearest. And I'm talking about time now when you're actually awake and not simply sleeping in the same house. We spend more time in the workplace than we do in the natural world, and we spend more time in the workplace than we do in our places of worship. If we're not asking the questions which are germane to what it means to live a full life, it's not only tragic for each human being, but we actually cannot get to the places where we want to talk about the qualities that are necessary for the new workplace, the new kind of leadership, the new kind of work environment that we're all creating together now through our conversations. Here's a piece by Robert Frost. It's a stunning little fragment of a poem of his, a longer poem called Two Tramps in Mud Time. Into the mouth of a person chopping wood on a farm, Frost puts these few words. They're a remarkable summation of what work could be for each of us. But yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation. but yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation. These two words, avocation and vocation. And vocation is your calling, and comes from this ancient Latin word vocatus, meaning to have a voice. And we use this word every day in our work. We say, I have a voice in the organization. And when a person says that, it's very meaningful. It's also very meaningful, but more tragic, when a person says, I do not have a voice in this place. I do not have a voice in my workplace. It means I cannot affect my destiny. The place where I spend so much of my time is actually a place which totally rules me, and I have no meeting with it. So this ancient human intuition and understanding that has been written about for centuries, that a human being literally uses their voice to call life to them, but that it's not a one-way street, that life is actually calling each one of us to a deeper kind of belonging. And the fact that we spend a lot of time in the workplace every day earning a living does not exempt us from that calling. And in fact, one of the great tasks of life, it seems to me, is to make one's work a good servant to what we want for ourselves and those close to us and our communities and our society in the world. That work should be a good servant to the soul's desires in the world. And when we have work as a good servant to us and not a terrible master, then we have a possibility of a conversation that's worthwhile. Yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation.